So it's fascinating that you talk about that, the way that you do, because you could make an argument. And by the way, this goes for all of us in our individual lives, as a family. The more things change and the more things get chaotic outside, the more you have to really focus on, what do I really control?
Right.
You know, my dad was big into, the only thing you can control is your own effort level.
Yep.
You know, my dad was a former Marine, and
Yep.
that's what he would pound into us. That's the only thing you have total control over. And since you've been here, you and I constantly talk about this culture that you're building, and I'm so fascinated because you seem to be not only intensely focused on it, but also involved in it. And here's what I mean by that, in two different ways. And you and I share this. I'm coming up on 13 years sober. You're also sober. That was a huge shift in my life and a commitment that I had to make. The other commitment I had to make is, how open was I going to be about it? How
Right.
forthright was I going to be about it, whether that was with my family or those around me? You've had to make that same choice. That choice for you and how open you are with it, in particular with your team, is almost central to what you guys do from a culture standpoint.
Right.
How'd you make that decision?
Well, some of them got made for me. I'll be honest with you. Right?
Same.
Right,
by the way,
right.
same.
So when all of my stuff occurred initially, it was national news.
Sure.
I mean, it was on the ticker, right? It was everywhere. It was on every sports talk radio show. So it really wasn't like something that I could hide from, right? And so the reality was, okay, this is public knowledge. This is public information. I'm a public figure at this point. Okay, so how are you going to address it? How are you going to deal with it? Then as I navigated my way through it and being open and honest with those that I was close to, and I got back into the coaching ranks, I quickly realized in coaching, there's this thing called negative recruiting. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, Joel, but some coaches love to talk about another school or another coach. And naturally, it was not easy to figure out that other schools and other coaches were going to try to use that against me. And so I really became open, honest, and vulnerable with the recruits first and their families first to talk through my story. Then I came to find out that why would I not want to share all of that with our team? Because I always felt like 18 to 22-year-old males, I mean, if there's a guarded group of individuals in our society, it's that group, right? Trust is not at the highest level. Being vulnerable, being open, being honest, not at the top of the priority list for a lot of young men. We're guarded. We want to suppress things. We want to keep things down. So how do I get them to feel comfortable to do that? Well, why don't I share? Why don't I become vulnerable? Why don't I give them my story? Why don't I give my story uncut, right? It's the version that they're sitting in their chairs thinking, I can't believe Coach Sark just said all that to us. To a point to where I've given them a platform to say it's okay to be vulnerable, to be honest, to open up, to share issues. Nobody's judging you. We're all just looking to support one another. And we've tried to cultivate that through a process throughout summer and in through training camp. Every year I do it. Every year at the start of the summer, I tell my story. And there's some guys that sit in that team room that have sat in there for 3-4 years now, have heard the same story. And every time they pick up a little something different.
Interesting.
I've told that story last summer. My own son was sitting in that room, right? And what a perspective that was for him to hear my story now sitting in a chair as one of the players on the team. Our own coaches. But then for me, then it does go to our assistant coaches. They tell their stories. And none of us are perfect.
Sure.
We've all got things in our past that we've had to work through and continue to work through. So now we've created a platform for the players to start to share. And now what happens is there's some empathy. I know what you're going through, man. And I know if you look a little off today, I have something to tap into, whatever it might be. And in the end, I think that really did draw us closer. But every year you have to recreate it, right? I lose 25, 30 guys that move on. And here comes a new batch of 25, 30 guys. And how do we get them back into our culture? How do we get them to understand it's okay to talk about what's going on in our lives? And Coach Sark's actually here to help you. He's not here to look for what's wrong with you so that he can cut you and move on to the next kid. It's actually work with you to try to make you the best person that you could be.
Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.